Welcome to an Athletic Life podcast, a show for former college athletes who want to feel, look, and live like an athlete again in real life. I'm Justin Andrade, founder of the Athlete Reboot system, and each week we break down simple, sustainable plays for training, nutrition, and mindset that actually fit careers, families, and real-world responsibilities. No hype workouts, no crash diets, just proven systems and real stories to help you rebuild a body and life you're proud of again. Let's get into it. I want to start with something I hear all the time, and I'm curious if you've ever caught yourself thinking you're doing well, like genuinely well. You've been consistent, you feel good, things are finally clicking, and then you look at the calendar again, and there's a trip coming up, a busy week, a stretch where you already know your normal routine just isn't going to happen. And almost immediately, there's this like quiet shift in your head, and not necessarily panic, but just like a subtle feeling of like, here we go again. Because we're being honest, it's not the week off that scares you. It's usually what happens after that week off that really is concerning. You've seen this movie before, like, every time you step away, like you tell yourself it's going to be fine, you'll get back into it. And then suddenly you're a few weeks removed and things feel harder than they should. And you're asking yourself how something that was working so well before you went on vacation or before you took that break got so far away from you. And that's the part that no one really talks about, because the advice is always just kind of something like, just enjoy your time off or don't stress. 1 week doesn't matter, which sounds good on paper, but it also doesn't exactly help you really figure out like what's going to be the best solution for you. And your experience of what's happened in the past tells you that that's not a great solution for you. So today, I want to talk about how to take a week off in a way that doesn't feel like it's creating a spiral or just something that's going to like derail you forever. Not by like white knuckling it, or not by like staying hyper disciplined on vacation, and definitely not by pretending you don't care, but by understanding what actually keeps progress intact when life does inevitably get messy. And I'm going to come back to that later, like why most people lose progress after the break, not during it, because that's the piece that changes really everything. Now, here's what I think is really happening. Most people don't struggle with effort. They struggle with trust. They don't trust that if they like loosen their grip and kind of just enjoy vacation, that they will be able to get back to it afterwards. And distrust doesn't just come out of nowhere. It came from past experiences. Like one missed week turns into months or years, or even it took you a long time just to get the motivation to get started again. And then all of a sudden there's another setback and you think you're right back to the beginning. And that structure like disappeared really quickly because you finally found something that works, and you feel like you have to refine that again. And getting back into that rhythm feels way harder than it should. So now, even when things are going well, there's this underlying fear that it's like all kind of temporary, that you're balancing something that's super fragile. And that's why time off feels dangerous, because it's not neutral like in your mind where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to take a week off. Like it's a fully loaded situation where you know that like if you come back, you're most likely not going to just get back into the routine that you had previously. So here's the important part, and we'll keep coming back to this, that the week off is not the problem. The problem was the mental checkout that happened during it. That moment where the story kind of like quietly shifted towards like, instead of just like, I'm taking a break, to, I guess none of this really matters right now because I'm taking a break or because of vacation. That shift is very subtle, and you don't necessarily like notice it when it's happening. You notice it maybe later in the week, you notice it like when you return, but that's really like why I want to talk about consistency in a very different way than most people do, because what we think of as consistency isn't something that you can actually maintain through a vacation and get back on track afterwards. Now, consistency comes down to like what it actually is versus what consistency gets sold as this thing that looks really clean from the outside. Like you do the same workouts, you do the same meals, you do the same routine week after week. But the version of consistency like that only works in a truly controlled environment. We know that like real life consistency is messy, that life's not linear, that every day looks different than the day before. And inevitably, even when you think you're crushing it, something's going to pop up that's going to set you back. It's knowing how to stay connected to the habits that you built when each day doesn't look the same, because consistency isn't about doing the most. It's about avoiding doing the extremes. What actually keeps progress intact is not the intensity, it's the continuity. And continuity comes from protecting the basics. When you take a week off, you're not trying to maintain 100%. You're not trying to protect every little thing that you've done, but there's a few things that kind of do the heavy lifting to maintain that consistency. And it's eating reasonably. It's making sure that you are moving consistently. It's making sure that you are sleeping enough. It's making sure that you come back from vacation feeling better than you did when you left, and staying mentally engaged with the process. That's it. I know like that can seem underwhelming because we're taught like progress comes from doing more, because most people like don't realize that progress is far easier to maintain than it is to rebuild. And we know that, but it's difficult to think that, okay, we don't need to catch up from this week off that we took, which is why like the way you think about taking time off matters so much. One of the biggest mindset shifts I've made, and one I see change everything for most people, is realizing that like good habits don't vanish like under pressure. They actually are the good things that can allow you to continue to make progress in kind of like a scalable environment. So like regardless of what life looks like, it works for you. And that's why when we're working with the client, like we boil it down to what's the simplest and easiest process that someone can do to actually get a result, versus thinking like, okay, like how do we put them in a box and say, okay, if they work within this box, like we know they'll get a result, but they're going to hate it for 3 months, versus being like, okay, these are the principles and these are the habits that they need to have in place that will allow them to be successful forever. And that actually scales into something they can do forever, but really only if you set it up that way. So the only like version of being consistent that you really need to recognize is those actual consistent habits, versus thinking about being perfect all the time. Because if you think about being perfect as consistent, like inevitably you're going to drop off the second something pops up. So instead of saying like, how do I stay on track? Ask, what does staying on track actually look like, versus you just thinking it has to be the same thing all the time. Like boil it down to simple things. Like movement doesn't have to be training. It can be walking. It can be 5 minutes. It can be unstructured. Nutrition doesn't have to be strict. It can be awareness. It can be prioritizing protein. It can be not turning every meal into like, okay, I'm going to absolutely stuff my face and have me feel terrible the next day. But just like anchoring a little closer to like, okay, is this a reasonable decision, versus living on the extreme of like, okay, I'm just going to go out and get drunk and feel awful for 3 days. Or like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have a couple drinks, but you know what? I'm going to have some water before I go to bed. And I want to wake up in the morning and get walking and start feeling a little bit better, so you don't waste 3 days of vacation just because you enjoy having a couple of drinks. Those small anchors matter way more than people realize. And I'll come back to why those anchors make returning kind of feel a little more effortless, versus the other way of just thinking like, okay, it's this big undertaking. So if you're an ex-athlete, this hits even closer to home, because you were taught that time off means either falling behind, or you are somehow like going to do this amazing recovery that's going to make you come back even better. And that's the hard part of like being in season versus going out of season. We think like, yeah, we got to be dialed in season. It's going to take us like 3 months to recover. And it doesn't take that long to recover. And there are some specific instances where sure, you might need a little more recovery time. But the reality is, for an adult that is no longer training, you don't need that long break. You need a week to recharge. You may need like a prolonged period of lighter exercise if you are someone that's like high cortisol levels, has other stuff going on. Like that's a unique circumstance. But for the vast majority of people, we just need to get back to doing the same thing we do all the time. And we were always taught that rest is something you earn, but you don't necessarily need to train in a way where you need to earn rest anymore. And so that mindset, like obviously was created in sports, is obviously created in college environment, which is totally okay. That's what set us up to be successful, you know, both now and in the future. But in an adult life, that creates fragility where it's something that can break very easily if we go into that mindset. Because now the goal isn't to peak, it's to stay consistent, stay healthy for the rest of our lives for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And learning how to take time off without unraveling like is one of the most important skills that you can build. Not because it makes you feel softer, be less of an athlete, but because it makes your approach finally match your life in a way where you can actually do this for the rest of your life. Because the most important reasons that you can actually be focusing on your health are to be around for yourself, feel good about yourself, feel confident, feel like you can show up every day. But also, I think we forget this a lot. We impact so many people. We talk to so many people each day. Most of us have like families or someone that's important to us. And if our health comes first, we can serve them significantly better than we could if our health wasn't good. And so like you're doing it for a much bigger reason. And so having those anchors of something to be consistent with to make sure you can come back and be at your best for them is way more important than you worrying about being perfect or doing something that's going to put you in a box and that you're going to hate. So this is where everything either kind of solidifies or falls apart. The biggest mistake people make when they come back is trying to compensate. They'll do more workouts. They'll think, oh, well, like I had a ton of desserts. I'm going to cut out some of those foods. I'm going to make more rules. I'm going to do no sugar January. And every time you do that, you reinforce the idea that you messed up. So instead of you coming back and going exactly into where you left off, the same plan, the same expectations, no punishment, because progress isn't made by like those intensity spikes. It's made by calm repetition of doing the same things over and over again. When you trust yourself to return without making yourself feel guilty about what you did on that break, that's when consistency becomes sustainable. It's something that you can actually maintain over time and something you're going to enjoy doing and start to look forward to doing. Now, remember earlier when I said most people don't lose progress during the break, they lose it after because they turn that pause into a problem. Taking time off isn't supposed to be a risk or a concerning thing. Not knowing how to return from it is. And when you learn how to step away without mentally checking out and come back without overcorrecting and thinking you have to be perfect for a month, that's when this stops feeling like something where it's a big risk you taking a vacation. That's when progress finally feels like something that you own. And I want to give an example for me that popped up this last week. So I work out 5 to 6 days a week. I do 30 minutes of lifting, maybe 20, 30 minutes of cardio if I have time for it. All depends on like if my daughter wakes up. If she's still sleeping, like I'm going to do some walking on the treadmill while I listen to a podcast or listen to music or something along those lines. And I do that most of the time, even on the days off. Like I try to just be active because I feel better that way. But this last week, both were trying to help our daughter like sleep through the night a little bit better. We had family in town. They were leaving. We wanted to spend more time with them. They had an early flight. When like all these things popped up in this week where it was like, okay, there was no, like, if I don't work out before they get up, there's no shot that I'm going to get a workout in that day. And so I had accepted, like, I'm going to basically take this week off. That meant that I made some smarter decisions throughout the week. Like I didn't, try and throw down 2 pizzas in a meal or like do something crazy where I was just like so off track. I was like, all right, like I'm going to make some of the easy compensations to make sure that I'm actually able to continually making progress. A lot of that came down to like, making sure I'm taking the vitamins that I take in the morning, or making sure that like I'm drinking plenty of water or sleeping the best I can whenever I can. As a parent, like that's whenever you can get great sleep is a good thing. But now we're preparing for like they left this morning and I'm preparing to get back in the gym tomorrow. So I'm setting my day to day where like I'm being super productive. I'm planning on going to bed early. I'm planning on getting the rest. And I'm also, my plan for the gym tomorrow morning is not to do 30 minutes of weightlifting and 20 to 30 minutes on the treadmill of just walking. I'm probably going to go in there. I'm going to do my normal push day. I'm going to do about 60% of what I would have done before. I'm not going to go to, where it's like the last 3 to 4 reps are close to a higher stimulus. Like it's going to be more of like a maintenance day. I'll probably do 15 minutes, 20 minutes of lifting and 10 minutes walking the treadmill. Like that's probably what my day is going to consist of. I'm probably going to feel like I could do way more, and I could do way more. Like it's only a week. I could jump back to where I did before, but then the next 3 to 7 days are jeopardized because I did way too much today. Instead, I'm going to do a little bit tomorrow. I'm going to go through. So I do a push day, I do a pull day, I do a leg day, and then I do basically like a recovery day, and I just like rotate through that. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do 15, 20 minute lift, 10 minutes on the treadmill day 1. Day 2, probably still 15, 20 minute lift, 10, 15 minutes on the treadmill. Day 3 is probably going to be 15, 20 minute lift, and then probably do 10 to 15 minutes on the treadmill. Then from there, I'm going to probably go 20 to 25 minute lift. And then I'm going to go to my 30-minute lift over the course of like that third cycle, which is really 9 days away. But what I do throughout that process is not feeling bad for what I'm doing on those first couple of days. I'm building myself a ramp where it's like, great, I enjoy it. I reward myself for feeling good about it. I build confidence for doing it consistently. And the next thing you know, I'm just like, yeah, I like doing this. I'm just going to keep doing this part of my morning. Love it. And then the next time something pops up, which could be in March when I go on a golf trip, could be in April when I go on vacation, could be in May when I probably like take time with family or I go golf or whatever, something's going to pop up all the time. But if you boil it down and you look back on the year as a whole, which I did the same method, like this is what I did for all of 2025. And I don't track my workouts from a sense of like all the specifics of it all the time. But what I do track is I track like days I completed something. Well, I did a workout on 68% of days last year. Like, so basically 2 out of 3 days I worked out. That's pretty good. That's more than enough. And I'm like more than happy with where I'm at physically. I'm more than happy where I'm at with my health. If you were to look at me a year ago, you would think I'm consistently healthier. Now, I also went from 34 to 35, and this year I'm going to 35 to 36. I'm still going to feel healthier, but it's not by doing something super extreme. It's by consistently taking some steps every day and making sure it's something that I can do repeatedly. So I hope this is helpful. If this is helpful to you, make sure to just please share it with another former athlete or someone that you think would benefit from this. That means so much to us. And I will see you on future episodes.